Hello, everybody. So for this next exercise, what we're going to do is a hip flexor stretch, and then I'm going to show a couple variations of that as well. So the first step in the hip flexor stretch, you've probably seen this before, but there are a couple of things that I see that go incorrectly with this exercise. So first, let's say that we are going to try to stretch our left hip flexor. So what we're going to go is into a half kneeling position, just like this, just like that, okay? Now, depending on how tight you are is how far you might have to take this stretch. So in this position, we want to maintain an upright posture, but not arch at our low back. So a neutral posture, just like this. Then you want to try to bring in your belly button towards your spine, almost like you're tilting your pelvis backward. By now, you're probably feeling a stretch. I do feel a stretch right there. And then also squeezing the buttocks will also enhance that stretch a little bit. We stay up nice and tall. Sometimes as we do this, we tend to get tired and go forward and lose the stretch. So make sure you're standing tall. If you just want to stretch the muscle, if that's all you're trying to do, you want to hold this position for 3 to 5 minutes. You should see gains in actual muscle length in about 10 to 12 weeks after doing that. Now, if we're just trying to mobilize this area, that's a different story. That's something just preparing our muscles to run. So if we're doing that, then we don't need to go very long at all, maybe a 10-second, 15-second stretch. Sometimes we'll also add some additional movement with it. So for a lot of my runners, what I like prior to running is, again, now we're switching sides. Now I'm on my right side stretching this, is add some rotational movement with it. So if we add a little rotational movement, we get a little more similar to running. Maybe 20 to 30 repetitions like this before you run will help kind of loosen up that area and get it ready to run. If you have what's called capsular tightness or joint mobility issues in your hip, we can use a resistance band to add a little more mobilization. So again, I'm going to go back to my left side. I'm going to stretch my left side. I've attached a thick resistance band to a stable surface, and I'm going to put my leg through it, a big loop. And I want to get it up very, very high, all the way up as high as I can on my hip, because it's going to pull me forward and stretch what's called the anterior capsule of the hip. I'm going to get back in that same position that I was in earlier. And now I'm going to stay here, and then I'm going to kind of go, I'm going to pull back. And now I get the additional pull forward on the capsule of the hip, as well as the hip flexor stretch. Again, if you're trying to lengthen tissue, you want to hold this position for 3 to 5 minutes. However, if we're just mobilizing this area, we can take stress off of it and go back on, and we can do this maybe 20 times.